Welcome to the Planter Showdown.
He gets up before the dawn, packs a lunch and a thermos full of coffee. It's another day in the dusty haze, those burning rays are wearing down his body. The diesel's worth the price of gold, it's the cheapest grain he's ever sold, but he's still holding on. He just takes the tractor another round and pulls the plow across the ground and sends up another prayer. He says, Lord, I never complain, I never ask why. Please don't let my dreams run dry. Underneath this Amarillo sky. That hailstorm back in '83 sure did take a toll on his family. He stayed strong and carried on, just like his dad and granddad did before him. On his knees every night he prays, please let my crops and children grow, 'cause that's all he's ever known. He just takes the tractor another round and pulls the plow across the ground and sends up another prayer. He says, Lord, I never complain, I never ask why. Please don't let my dreams run dry. Underneath this Amarillo sky. And he takes the tractor another round, another round, another round. And he takes the tractor another round, another round. He says, I never complain, I never ask why. Please don't let my dreams run dry. Underneath this Amarillo sky. Underneath this Amarillo sky.
Say that again in 30 seconds. Okay, let's get this part and then you guys can cut to that. Okay, okay. All right, well, hey, I got to get back at it. I'm guessing they're going to be calling me any minute.
It's a long 30 seconds.
I might have left him hanging there. I was supposed to radio him in. I was busy working. That's my bad. All right, we're not going to leave you guys hanging, though. We're going to show you guys some of the early season results from the Planter Showdown. How many of you have heard of the Planter Showdown prior to today? Okay, so you've seen the dig, you've seen Colin. There's plenty more blooper reels where that one came from if you want those, okay? Just get with me after. But we're going to get to the early season results of the Planter Showdown, okay? And so first and foremost, very thankful for the opportunity to conduct this trial with Case, John Deere, Fendt. They graciously brought their equipment here, let us do this trialing completely unbiased. Everything we do is that way in practical farm research. So, you know, a lot of the information I'm talking about today, they did not see it until 9:15 yesterday either, when everybody else did, okay? It's going to be the same way when we crown that overall winner in yield when it comes to corn and soybeans. They'll see it when you guys see it, okay? That's the way we operate. So how many of you have ever seen that kind of information head-to-head against these three companies, any kind of planter results like that? Anybody ever seen any info like that? Because it's not out there, right? So we are so thankful we've got the opportunity to do that, and I'm thankful for them, right? They're putting it all on the line. for this trial here. And so going to go through a little bit of what everybody brought, and then we're going to show you some of those results. So Case brought us a Magnum 380 half track with their early riser 2150S, right? Okay, so we wanted to plant 15-inch soybeans, 30-inch corn. The planter itself is powered by precision planting technology, right? So it's got the precision planting monitor, V-sets, speed tube, because we're going to do high-speed planting through a lot of these trials. So everybody had to bring a high-speed component as well. And then they've got their standard case closing system, row cleaners, all those bells and whistles that they offer. Fendt brought us a 942 Vario tractor. Different. The cool thing about this is, and I get this question a lot, I got it 5 minutes ago again, is why not Kinsey? Anybody know the answer to that? Kinsey don't make a tractor. So we went for the 3 that could bring us a tractor and planter combo, okay? So that is actually the reason we went with those 3. Kinsey's reached out since that point. They want to play in this space too if we do it again next year. So we'll see what happens. But these guys were able to bring a tractor planter combo. And what's really cool is all 3 of these tractors are unique, right? Half track from Case we talked about. Fendt brought us all wheeled tractor, but it's got a tire inflation kit on that entire tractor and on every tire on the planter system. And so they brought that Momentum 31. It also has precision planting technology on it with the V-set, speed tube. Their closing system is Furrow Force as well. And so then we get to John Deere. They brought us an 8RX 410 with their 1795 ExactEmerge planter. So they got their meter, they have their fast delivery system in ExactEmerge, and we got an all-track tractor in this lineup, okay? Their planter closing system was Yetter poly twisters. We'll talk a little bit more about those throughout this presentation as well. So one of the things you will notice on these planters, if you've went out and seen them or you're going to, is the fertilizer tanks are on them. We did not use fertilizer in these trials, okay? We didn't want to throw a whole nother variable at this thing. It was hard enough to coordinate it to begin with, okay? So we didn't use fertilizer, but we did fill them with water, okay? So when we were doing the corn trials, we didn't need near enough seed to fill all those bulk tanks full of seed for all 3 planters. So we wanted to have more weight on the center of that planter to simulate having more seed on the center of that planter as well. So that's what we use those fertilizer tanks for. Rules and protocols here, okay? They could bring any tractor and a 40-foot planter, and the planter could have any of their technology on it that you can order from the factory. Any of their OEM parts, except for some of these like Smart Depth, Smart Firmer, Furrow Vision, anything that's gonna change things on the fly or any of that, because we weren't gonna do that. We standardized the planting depth, we standardized the seeding rate, so we didn't need any of that anyway, okay? So they brought pretty much the latest and greatest technology that they have to offer out of the factory on their planters, okay? They brought their operator. We were not gonna set their planter. They know their planters best, so they operated their planter, they set their planter. We rode in the cab with them just to help make sure the trials got executed properly. Then after planting was over, we kicked them out of here, okay? Done with them. They did their work, now it's our turn to do our work. We did all the evaluations and then we're reporting it here today. So no data has been shared until up to yesterday at 9:15. We'll show you that data here today, and then we'll publish yield results later this fall. Okay, so what we did on corn, we did 2 different studies. We did speed, we looked at 5 and 10 mile an hour, right? I mentioned they have the high speed delivery systems on all these planters. And then we looked at seed size. So we looked at how does their meter and delivery system perform when we have small plateless and large rounds. Okay, 1 hybrid, 34,000 standard population. The speed field was no-till. The seed size field was a conventional tillage field. Corn after soybean, no starter. And then we took these are the early evaluations we took: 24-hour emergence, stand count, singulation, and spacing. Soybeans, kept it pretty simple, okay? Loaded them up, let them fly. We did 5 and 10 mile an hour, 1 variety, standard seeding rate of 130,000, conventional till field, soybeans after corn, and then we took final drone stand counts on this field as well. Okay, so those early results that everybody's been waiting for, we're gonna go through the final stand counts on soybeans, and then these 4 categories on the corn. So when it comes to corn, we planted 2 fields, we did some different treatments, right? Well, we're gonna rank these things 1, 2, 3, just like we do with everything. It's the showdown, okay? So this is gonna be how they perform. So when it comes to corn, what we did is we took 24-hour emergence on both fields, all treatments, and we lumped that into one number for every company, and that's what's gonna determine 1, 2, 3 in each one of those categories. Okay, then we had some extracurricular activities that we made these guys do before we kicked them out. Okay, they had to do a crop changeover, fold unfold competition, and a little bit of a planter clean out. We actually had to do that multiple times, so that was cool. All right, soybeans, we're gonna start there. This is the final drone stand counts. This is how everything shook out. So at 5 mile an hour, across all those replications, this is how it is. The graphs you're gonna see, they're always gonna be in this order for consistency, so it's easy for you guys to follow along. You're always gonna see Case, Deere, Fendt in that order across these graphs. It's random, there's no rhyme or reason. Okay, so you can see at 5 mile an hour, Deere had the most final stand. At 10 mile an hour, it was Fendt. Okay, Case had a little tweak that we probably needed to make towards the end of the trial. Notice probably had a little bit too much weight still on the center of that planter, so they really need to push more of that weight out to the wings. Every planter had the weight distribution system on, but that one probably needed to be adjusted to get more of the weight off the center. Those 4 transport tires, the rows that planted into those tire tracks, struggled at emergence just a little bit. That's where that slip in emergence came from there. So you can see final stand counts anywhere from 98,000 up to 104,000 with Deere. So really there's not a big difference here at all. This is field wide. So that's right where we like it. I like final stand counts on soybeans to be in that 100,000 range. So it's right in that sweet spot. So it's anybody's game when it comes to soybeans. Field looks great. Can't wait to get the combine out there and get this stuff harvested. Now when it comes to corn, we got 2 different fields. We got 2 different tests, right? We've got speed. We've had different things happen early on, okay? And it drew out some differences. And so this first field was planted on May 13th. We did the 24-hour emergence counts on it, started doing them, and it took 7 days for the first plant to the last plant to come up. Typically, it only takes 4, maybe 5 days when we do these 24-hour emergent counts, okay? It drug out quite a bit, and I'm gonna show you why. So we planned on May 13th. This is a little bit of a heat map, if you will, of what things look like. So this is May 13th, day of planting. The different colors represent different degree ranges and what it was. So 55 to 65 is that light green, 65 to 75 is that orange, so on and so forth. The black lines that you see there at about 6 a.m., 9 p.m., that's just showing you kind of the daytime hours, the heat we accumulated then compared to those nighttime. The number on the far right is how many GDUs we accumulated that day, okay? So let's skip forward down to May 20th, because the first counts we took, the first batch of plants that came up was on the morning of May 21st, okay? So we accumulated 131 heat units before the majority of the first plants started coming up the morning of the 21st. Now, look what happened after that. Okay, we had a decent amount come up day 1. Now what happened? Sun disappeared. We lost our heat. We got single-digit GDUs for multiple days in a row. So Colin and I are out there with a bunch of flags for 7 days every morning, going out there looking for plants. Sometimes Colin's vision ain't as good, so I got to go behind him and make sure he got all the plants. Just kidding. But the heat units really fell off, and so it took a lot longer for all those plants to come up. Okay, so these are the results. The numbers in the bar are on average how many plants came up that day, right? So that 9.25, that would be this to simulate 9,250 plants per acre, right? On average came up for Case there at 5 mile an hour day 1. We get to day 2. Now you see the GDUs, right? We had 7 GDUs and we got some more plants up. Now we have 2 GDUs the next day. So we were out there just finding a few more plants every day till finally they all came up. On day 7, we had a full stand out there, okay? Seed size field. We had a little bit of rain, so we had to send everybody home. They had to come back a week later to plant that last trial, and it was a seed size trial. So we planted out on May 19th, okay? First plants emerged May 29th. Now look again what happened. It took 7 days again. So about the time Colin and I get done flagging the first field, screwing around for 7 days, now we start doing this field and do it for another 7 days. So it was a lot of fun. We went through a lot of flags. But it's a different reason why this one took 7 days compared to the first one, okay? So the green line is the high temperature for this time frame. The gray is the average. We planted on May 19th there on the left. Look what happened the very next day on May 20th. Weather said we were gonna get a nice 1/2 inch of rain. Guess what we got? A really fast 20-minute 1.5 inches. Anybody deal with that this year where the weather forecast just wasn't quite accurate? Yeah, so we had a hard, fast 1.5 inches come. Does anybody have some clay-based soils they farm here? What happens when we get to then about 75 degrees and above full sun after we've had a hard pounding rain? Starts getting a little crusty out there, right? So my dashed line here is 75 degrees. That's where we start seeing that. Okay, so look where the plants started to emerge. Look when we started to get to about 75 degrees. Now we're crusted. Okay, so those plants that came up in those first 2 to 3 days really had a big advantage, right? Because they got up out of the ground easier, and we've got heat, so they're taking off. Okay, so big advantage there to those that came up. So I'm gonna flip through the first couple days. You guys notice anything on once we get to about day 3? Is there anything the same between small seed and large seed? See, John Deere's got a little bit of a head start here on the other guys. Any idea why? Somebody say closing wheels. I mentioned the closing wheels on these things, right? Has anybody ever seen our closing wheel data and ever thought to yourself, why do the Yetter poly twisters perform so well for Becks? Any idea? Crusting. They're one of the best wheels we have ever tested when we have crusting at Emergence, okay? They leave just enough of a crack when it dries out. Those plants can find their way out pretty easily. That's what we saw. When we were digging at planting time, conditions were ideal. Case and Fendt had a better seed bed at planting, right? They fractured that sidewall. Those packing wheels went back across, really good seed to soil contact. But when it rains hard and fast and the heat turns on, that seals over. We've seen that before. That's one of the downsides in our soil types, not all, of those types of wheels. So this trial in particular really drew out the differences in closing wheel systems. And that's really what you're seeing here. But eventually we get to day 7 and it evens up quite a bit. These are just some good visuals early on of what I talked about, right? John Deere had a few more plants coming up early. They really started taking off. Visually, you could see that, okay? Another good image of that happening here. But after about 2-3 weeks, we get to side dress time, side dress, it all evens up. You can't really see this visual anymore. But will that slight advantage with 24-hour emergence, you know, how much will that matter? How much will that translate to yield here in the end? And so this is on average, both fields, okay, both cornfields, the 24-hour emergence, on average, how many plants came up in the first 2 days. These aren't great numbers. It's not the planter's fault, right? It's Mother Nature, right? Typically in the first 48 hours, if we're planting 34,000, I want at least 30,000 of those up in the first 48 hours. It just didn't happen that way with the heat units, lack of heat units, and the crusting we had. So this is how it kind of penciled out there. When you look at the final stands across these fields, we're back to the speed field here, right? The one that just came up a little bit slower because of lack of heat, but look at the final stands. Look really good, right? Fendt has a slight lead in that first field on overall stand, but it's not much. And then, as you would expect here, John Deere has a slight lead in that second field, right? They did have a few more up earlier, and then they did have a few more up total in the end in the seed size field. Okay, so when you wrap both fields together, final stand counts across all those acres between these 3 companies, we're within 700 plants per acre of each other, okay? That's kind of what I expected. I don't expect there to be big differences. We're talking about the 3 biggest names in planter technology and tractor technology sitting out here going against each other, right? So it's really hard to draw out differences against the best of the best. When we get to singulation, we're on the speed field, so we're gonna look at that 5 mile an hour. Here's the ground truth singulation at 5 mile an hour. So what happens if we walk out there and it looks like we have a skip? We need to dig, right? Because if we have a seed that did not germinate, that's not the planter's fault, okay? So anywhere where it looked like we had a skip, Colin and I are out there digging, making sure there's a seed there or not. If we find a seed, we credit that to the planter, okay? We don't take that against singulation. Now, luckily we planted all Beck seed, so everything came up. There was not that problem. There might have been a few that didn't germinate, okay? 10 mile an hour. Case looking really good there at 98.6, right? So these numbers are really good. It's back and forth a little bit. We get to the seed size field on singulation. Case looks great on that small plateless. They're still hanging in really good there. Large rounds, so's John Deere. Fendt dropped singulation in this field from the last field a little bit. Not sure why. I know they're wondering if maybe the vacuum wasn't set quite right. The monitor was reading better singulation than this, so not real sure what happened there, but it did come down slightly from their performance in that previous field. The little things matter, guys. That's why I point these out, right? The little things matter. Adjusting from field to field, seed size, adjusting for that. All that stuff is going to add up and matter in the end. So when we take singulation across both trials, wrap it all together, 97.4 up to 98.4. So all of them are within 1% of each other on singulation across all these acres as well. Not a big difference there. What about spacing? Has anyone ever went out in a field and actually took spacing measurements plant to plant? Has anybody done that? Couple. It's not a lot of fun. I kind of got that. I don't know what that means, but I kind of. It's not a lot of fun. Okay. So Colin and I, to make sure we're giving you the most accurate spacing measurements you've ever seen, got out there on our hands and knees for multiple days with digital calipers. Okay. We took these measurements with digital calipers out to 4 decimal places. This is one of about 12 sheets that are on my desk total for these trials. And so that's how we measured all these plants. It was a lot of fun. Loved it. It was also like between 85 and 90 degrees every day we were doing this as well. Okay? So what is good spacing? What is perfect spacing? Perfect spacing at 34,000 would be that every plant is 6.15 inches away from the next plant. Guess what? No one had 100% spacing, nor will they probably ever. With this is great technology. It's the best technology, right? But probably the only way to get that is stick them to tape, measured perfectly, and then unroll that tape and plant it. Okay? I'm not going to rule that out being something that happens in the future. But today, anything over 85% and up of what I'm going to show you, what I'm going to call good spacing, is really good. Okay? So how did we factor good or acceptable spacing? So what we did is we took all these measurements, and any of the measurements that were within 33% plus or minus that 6.15 is what we're going to put towards good spacing percentage. Okay, so any of those measurements that were 4.12 to 8.18 are going to fall into that good percentage. Okay, and so this is how it stacked up. The first field, 5 mile an hour. We're anywhere from 85 to 90% good spacing. 10 mile an hour, Deere really popped up. They went faster and their spacing got better. Okay, so did Case. You get to the second field. This is our small plateless and large round. This is the trickiest field to plant, right? Because they're adjusting their planters, their vacuums, their singulators. All those things are being adjusted from the small plateless to the large rounds to ensure good singulation and good spacing. Okay, so this is the small plateless. Deere's performance out here in this field was beyond phenomenal with 97. They were 98% at large rounds. This thing, that planter was just dialed in that field, right? The other guys had good spacing in this field as well, but when you get up above 95% good spacing, that's an incredible number. You could visually see that out there. So all these technologies are capable of doing that, but this thing was dialed in for that particular field. So when you take both fields and we average everybody's acceptable spacing together, we rank them 1, 2, 3, this is the one category, right, that we see one company kind of pull away just a little bit. So Deere's at 94.9, the other guy's 90 and 87 acceptable spacing. So all of this is really good spacing, but 94.9 is pretty good. So this is that one category that one company was able to pull away a little bit. That doesn't mean they're still going to out-yield everybody, right? There's other factors to consider. I talked a little bit about Fendt and their weight, or not their weight, their tire inflation system, right? So we were wet early after planting, we're dry now. If that tire inflation system mattered and they had less compaction, okay, less pinch row compaction, better root development, that might translate to some increased yield compared to some of the others too, right? So there are other factors that are going to dictate overall yield. These are just all the evaluations that we could take up to this point to try to see how things are going to stack up, okay? So the other observations and evaluations I talked about, we did a crop changeover competition. So what we did is we allowed 2 employees from each company to basically take their planter set on corn back to soybeans, okay? So all the split rows are up in the air, they're on soybeans already. The 30-inch rows are set on corn, okay? They had to switch all the row units back to soybeans, go up to the cab, switch everything in the monitor back to soybeans as well, lower those split row units, lower the planter down, and we stopped the clock, okay? So we sped this up. They look like a bunch of ants running around. They're going through switching all those meters, right? Going up to the cab, changing those things. And then we stop that clock when everybody's done, or when each company's done. Fendt's 20 minutes, Case is 15, John Deere's 14. Okay, Fendt took a little longer. They have the bigger mini hopper boxes, so they have to kind of take those off to get the plates out, so it takes a little bit longer when they do their crop changeover. Fold, unfold. So now, basically, we're timing them from getting their planter from road mode to field mode and back to road mode, right? We're gonna unfold it and fold it back up. So we time each company doing that as well. John Deere and Case are within 1 second of each other, and then Fendt just blows the doors off of this thing. Has anybody ever seen a Fendt Momentum planter fold or unfold? That's a big planter, and it's heavy, and it just folds right up. So it is actually beyond quick when you can fold and unfold like that. 1:40 is extremely fast for that large of a piece of equipment. So they stole the show on that one. Planter cleanout, this is 100% our observations, our opinion on ease of cleanout, okay? And so this is how we rank them up. Case was definitely the easiest. When that thing folds up, we can put a seed box right under them bulk tanks. Every kernel goes right in there. Their mini hoppers are small, easy to clean out. Fendt was easy to get the bulk tanks cleaned out, but they have the bigger hoppers, right? So there's more seed in them you gotta get cleaned out. It's kind of why we ranked them second. But they do have a really nifty little suction gun that's on the back of their planter where you can suck it out of the box and get it into, whether that's a bag or a seed box, pretty convenient. So that's a really nice feature. And then John Deere, just be nice if it was a little easier to get the seed out of the bulk fill. We spilled just a little bit too much of our precious seed on the ground, and so that's why we ranked them third. So it would be nice to be able to have something a little easier to clean the bulk fill out on the John Deere planter. So a recap of these results, it's anybody's game on soybeans. John Deere and Fendt did have a slight lead in total stand compared to Case, but I don't think that's gonna mean anything. I think it's anybody's game when it comes to yield. Sometimes less is more on soybeans anyway. So corn, the two categories where we did see a little bit of difference, right? The 24-hour emergence advantage for John Deere a little bit, and then their spacing was just a little more consistent on that second field than everybody else. So will those two categories correlate and translate all the way to yield? Time will tell, right? So I think it's still anybody's game on corn or soybeans, but that yield from the combine monitors are what we're gonna take when we crown champion of the Planter Showdown. So we'll crown a champion on yield for soybeans and overall yield for corn. And that'll come this harvest. Can't wait to have that happen. Stay tuned for those results. Appreciate y'all being here. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a little bit. I know the guys out here would love to talk to you about the planters. Thank you for coming out. Have a great day. Safe travels home.